It's a very beautiful work, Briele.
Thank you.
Tell me about how you start. Where did you film this?
Well, I was down at Little Desert in April this year, and the Wimmera River actually had some water in it. So
Okay.
yeah, I was camping there for a few days, and actually on the last day that we were there, I got up really early and discovered this particular spot.
Right.
Mm.
It's a very beautiful way. It's very much like a painting, and but a painting that really subtly changes. And every time I walk in this room, I notice a new thing in there. I mean, it seems to be fairly static, but every now and then a bubble will pop or something like that.
Yeah.
So how long did you shoot, and how did you?
Well, I actually filmed about a minute every 5 minutes over an hour.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where, and then I very slowly edited the montage together. So it's only 4 minutes and 20 seconds. But
It's not 4 continuous minutes.
it's 4 minutes
Yeah.
and 20 seconds, but no, it's not 4 continuous minutes.
Oh, really?
No, yeah.
Interesting.
There's a little bit of trickery in there. So.
Okay.
But the whole idea came out of a new body of work that I've started, which I'm calling Untitled Observations. And it was really sort of inspired by, I wanted to create an image that initially on first sight looked to be still, a still image, and then on further investigation you realise that it's actually moving. And it kind of, this idea sort of came out of a really difficult period in my life where I realised that I just sort of wanted to be still myself. And yeah, it was a very kind of interesting change in my practice really, because to date I've worked with projection and more sort of objects, and even with a more performative kind of element to my work. So this has been quite a shift away, yet still working with the same kind of concepts.
Yeah. I remember a work of yours I saw a couple of years ago, which was a bath, which you had a projection on the surface of the liquid of the bath of a drip of water going in. And it's not a million miles away from this. There's something about time, I think, which runs through the work.
Absolutely. I think when I allow myself to be still and not push things so hard, and because the process of actually making work is really important to me, so which is something that's I find quite difficult to communicate, because often the result is quite different from the process of making the work. But when I allow myself just to be somewhere and observe what's happening, something as subtle as a shift when the light that's cast on the thing that I'm looking at changes, that creates this huge perspective shift where nothing else is actually moved. So therefore there's a whole change in perspective and duration and time.
Yeah.
So it's a different kind of sensibility to looking at how I can create a perspective shift just by noticing what's already there. So all I'm doing is framing something that already exists, but I'm making decisions about how to help people see that maybe.
Yeah,
in a different
that's,
way.
I mean, that's the tradition that goes through art. I mean,
Absolutely.
I mean, as I said before, it's very much like a painting, and what a painting does is exclude all of the information that the painter didn't want you to see.
Yeah.
To focus on one thing.
Yeah, and I think with using the frame has become quite an interesting sort of experience as well. For me, it's sort of a little bit about paying homage to the whole history of art making and what it is to compose something and to make those decisions. And yeah, because we all make everything's a decision in the end, and we all frame things in certain ways. But this is my particular perspective, and it's only one point perspective, but perhaps it's in a way able to challenge other people's perspective somehow.
Sure, it's beautifully framed, as you said, and I particularly like the fact that it's a high-tech object. It's an LED screen, all that sort of thing. But you've hidden all that, so there's just the magic of the work, really. You don't think about wires and cables and TV screens, which are fairly quotidian sort of things, pretty boring.
I don't sort of want any of that to I don't want people to trip over all of that stuff. I just want it to be as sort of in the background. Everybody knows that it's a moving image and it uses technology, but I don't need to sort of state that.
No, not well. It's good to hide mechanisms of things. I think lots of artworks do that. I mean, again, paintings and photographs, they try and hide how the thing was constructed. Of course, that's important to the artist. And now is this, you're saying that this is part of a shift in what you're doing at the moment.
It kind of is and it kind of isn't. Like you said, it's not so far away, but for my own thinking, I think it is, because I've tended to, the process of making work is always quite intuitive for me, but I tend to push things quite hard and, you know, obsess over things and rework something. And but this has been a very, almost a clean process of just honouring, going on field trips and finding something that's interesting and that I find spectacular or
so you
just
went on
so
this
subtle.
You went on this trip specifically with that in mind, finding something?
Or whenever I go out of the
course.
city, I take my camera, and that's the way it happens. It's quite organic, and whenever I try and actually force myself to find something or go out scouting locations, it never actually works. So.
And what about the natural world, which is such an element here? And even I'm thinking with that bathtub one, there was something very elemental about that work too.
For me, all of my works are about making some kind of association between our relationship with ourselves as manifest within objects and site and place. So it's a direct relationship to that kind of, it's a direct comment on that kind of relationship. I see the frame as a sort of, in a way it's referencing two-dimensional art practice and composition and a long history of framing things or image making, but at the same time it's actually objectifying the imagery I've put here. It's making it into a three-dimensional thing. So yes, and I've actually used the wood, which is the tree, so it's a type of eucalypt.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, so...
It gives a lot more depth to the image, having that frame there too, doesn't it? It turns it into a window.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's been quite a wonderful process to learn all about, you know, the different woods and how accessible they are and how, you know, obviously it's an Australian wood, and working with a frame maker has been fantastic.